Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the AI. Today we're going to be answering a question from Alex Potter 6962. Thank you for submitting that question. And Alex has over 8 years of business information, and I'm going to explain how he could use this vector database and this RAG agent to query his information rapidly. So here we have the vector agent of how we can query. I'm going to explain what this is all set up. And this is how you're going to input your data in here. But first, I want to explain what RAG is and how it works. And I think if you have this better explanation, then it will give you an idea of how you can make your files for your organization. I'm going to give you some tips, but ultimately it's going to be your decision because you know your data the best. So first, from here, let's go over to a few articles that I've read through for you, and so that you don't have to read through them. Basically, we're going to start off, and this is the Pinecone store. And if you go to resources and learn, it has a lot of information that you can read through. But if you don't want to read, I'll explain it to you. So basically, what this is explaining is how the database gets created. So essentially, you have objects on the left, which are your records that you have, a complete PDF, a picture, or whatever the case is. This is your object. You submit it into n8n, and it gets embedded by text. And there's another picture of in the next tab of what this actually does, and I'll give you some more examples. But the reason this is important is if you see it says 0.6, 0.3, 0.1, you also score that data. And so those scores put the data next to each other. So if there is a point that says a boy is walking, that score is going to be really close to a little boy is walking. And then that score is going to be close to a little boy is running. And so in this vector database, you have a rational database that is three-dimensional. It not only goes up and down on the y-axis and left and right on the x-axis to say they're close to each other in time and space, but it also has another axis where it will score these data points, and when you query it, you have a better response from your query. Essentially, that's what this is talking through. This talks through how it scores the images and how an image gets put into the database. And here's some more information of how it kind of breaks down. So you have your input, and you have all these documents that you put in. They're broken down into small chunks within that document, and those chunks are paragraphs, images, whatever you set as a requirement. And we'll explain what those requirements are. And what I mean by that is you have tokens, and a token is typically a character. And so if you set the limit 1,000 tokens, that means every 1,000 tokens, it's going to create a new file. So with the first article complete, we'll move to the second one. Here's just another way that it works. We have our objects on the left, text, audio, images. They get ran through the algorithm inside of n8n, and then they're given a vector and a vector score. And then the object can be recognized in the same text. The last one I want to go through, and this is a pretty basic image of how it works. And I think each one kind of compounds on each other. They're saying similar things, the similar ideas. You have your research paper. It gets indexed. Now, you do have to understand what unstructured data is, structured data, and semi-structured data. So unstructured data is tables, charts. Structured data are terms and graphics, terms and numbers. And now semi-structured is, those two combined. Does it go to the structured method or the unstructured method? And then it gets embedded with n8n or OpenAI, and then it's put into Pinecone. And then you're able to query those by the variance. And we'll explain how that works. Each item is given a score, and we'll show you in the next part how that works. All right, so the last part I'm going to show you is how your index would look. So the way the index is made, so this isn't really important for you to understand. So inside of Pinecone, you have your database, And your database, this is where you're going to create all of your databases for which you are going to work in. And this is important to understand. And to answer your question, you have 8 years of information. What I would do, and a suggestion I would do, is break up those into years. So I'd create another index, and it's easy to, you just hit create, and I would label this year 1. And then you have to choose the model. This is important to understand. Simply go over to text embedding small, and you need to make sure you click this one because it has to match your vector store in n8n. And once you do that, I have the free version, so you keep all this the same. You could do other options, but because I have the free version, I can't change any of these. And then I create the index. Okay, so now I have an index that's titled, here it comes up. It's titled year 1. Now, what's important to note in this is I wanted to start here because I practiced this for you earlier, is the namespaces. Now, to answer your question for the namespaces, what I would do inside of namespaces is I would categorize the data in certain areas of emphasis. So what I mean by that is you have year 1, and since you're running your business, I would label one part operations and put all of your operation manuals in there. And then I'll have another namespace titled human resource and put all your human resource information into there. And you can keep going through your organization contracts, put all your contracts in there. And that's going to give you a way for the AI to come in, read year 1, and then go to namespace and get you the information at a more rapid rate. Now, the last thing I want to mention is I'm going to show you a couple of methods of how to input your data into there. A lot of businesses have Dropbox. So if you pay for this, the reason I'm showing you this part is because you do have to pay for this. I don't pay for it, but I wanted to give you the option. So since I didn't pay for it, I put it into the n8n workflow, but you can take it out of the workflow when you download the JSON. Again, the JSON is going to be in my Discord community and in school. I'm actually going to get rid of the school and probably just go straight to Discord. So we'll see how that goes. So now let's dig into creating this vector store. I broke down each section for you so we can go through and explain what it is and what we're doing in that process. So I'm going to zoom in and we're going to talk through this first part. So this first part up here is going to talk through different ways you can download your file. So I gave you a couple of different ways. Ultimately, you can click the plus and you can look for more ways to download the file. The way you would do that is you would click Actions in App. And then you could go through. So the way I found the AWS S3 bucket, you go down AWS S3 bucket and you can get the information. Whatever method you have to download the information, you can select that method here. So this is really dependent on your organization and what they use. Here's Dropbox. You can do the same Dropbox, download files. It's basically the same. So I gave you these two options because those are the more well-known options. Since I don't pay for these, I'm not going to do these, but you have the option here. The free version, which I'm going to go through, is for, if you can see, I've already tested this for you to make sure it works. So the free version I have is going to be the Google Drive method. Okay, so here I actually have to go in this one time because I changed the file. And so n8n video. So here after you have your ways to download the file, the next thing you want to go through is download the document to n8n. So you've downloaded the file, but it hasn't gotten into the n8n environment. So now we have to actually download that into this n8n environment. So this is an easy method. Same thing, just add this in as a step. Your credentials are going to be the same. Once you do that, the JSON will be in the description below. I wanted to put this to the side. And so if you have a lot of data, you could put in a loop method here. And from this method, I didn't want to do this for you because I'm assuming since you have all this old data, you're just going to dump it into a bucket. So if you just take that file, drop it into Outlook, it will run this for you. Now, if you have files that you're periodically updating, this will run through it and go through it systematically line by line and make sure all those documents are updated, and it'll recursively keep doing it. So I gave this to you as an option. You can connect it here so that it loops into the downloads. All right. So then here's where we're going to have a routing system. We need to route it because your files can be dependent on where you're getting it from. Your files can be PDF. If you're getting them from Dropbox, they can be Excel. So there's different file methods that you can download. So this if method is going to route the information where it's going. We'll go through line by line what each one is doing. But if it's a PDF, it's going to go up, extract the PDF, turn it into text, and then put it into the Pinecone store. If it's an Excel document, it's going to go through Excel. It's going to separate that data, the Excel, into rows and columns into arrays. And then it's going to summarize that, send it into the vector store. And the last method is if it is just a random text file from within Google Drive, it's going to go down the last method. It's going to review it and just send it into the Pinecone store, and then it's going to log your data. All right. So now let's go through line by line what's happening. So now I'm going to grab my Google. I've refreshed the screen and there's no data inside the system. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to see there's no data here. There's no data in it. I'm going to talk through what each one is. So now we have Google Drive connected. This is going to check every minute. And then this is the folder it's going to grab from in my Google Drive. So here in my Google Drive, I have n8n video. So this is what it's going to grab. This folder is empty, so there's nothing in there. So the way I would structure your folder is year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, and keep going down that way. So then the next thing I would do is watch for folder update. So when the data gets dropped into the folder, it's going to pass out the information. So what you do is you just have it check every minute, drop all your information in there, turn on the n8n workflow, and then this will run when a minute hits. So I'm going to fetch the data because I'm into test mode. And so it's not getting anything back. But because what I need to do is drop one of these files into the n8n video. So n8n video, it's there. So now I go back here and fetch the data. And now we have an output. So now this information on the right is really important. This tells you the file type it is. If it was a PDF, this is a PDF. If it were an Excel, it would tell you XSX file. If it was a Word, it will tell you the Word. It will tell you the type of file. Another important aspect that I want to highlight is the meme type. So this meme type is important for one of the next steps to understand, but you need to know this if you're going to have other file paths in there. And I'll explain what that means, and I will have a link in the video in the description below where you can get every meme type. So if you have Word documents, if you have different random types, in the next node that we talk through, we'll explain where this needs to go. So that information just got sent to this router. It's going to explain the file type and to send that information through. This is where you're dropping the meme type here. So we're going to grab the JSON and the meme type here, put it over, and then it's going to output what it is. So let's test this out. So again, we grab the meme type, we drop that here, and then we drop the ID and dropped it in here. And now it's put out this information over here. It tells you the file type and the ID. All right, so now we're going to close that down. So now we're going to go through the downloading the file. Okay, so we've downloaded the file here into n8n. We're going to pull that information and we're going to put it through a switch. This is really important to understand. We're going to open this up and here we have the file. The file has come in and it's telling us it's a PDF. How we know that is it's labeled here PDF. However, if it was a different file, like we have here, we have different files here. We have a Google Doc. We have, what is this one? An Office file, XML. So that's an Excel file. And so what we want to do is we go to JSON and we're going to pull in the file type. So this second row right here, we're going to drop that here. And it's important to understand that meme type. This is where I was mentioning in the past, the meme type is really important to understand. We have a document here. This is going to be late in the description below. But any type of document that you have in the Google Workspace, here is a list of the type of documents you can have. And here are their meme types in this middle column. So if you have a Word, this is what you would copy and paste in there if it was a Word file. If it's a PDF, here's your PDF. Here's your Excels down here. So that was the second row. If it's an open document, you have PDF right here again. So you have all these different ways to drop it in, a JPEG. So what you would do is you would drop file type here, and then you would put it to be whatever file you want it to go down that route. So we're going to test this step out. And so we see we have an output over here. We have 3 splitters. The first splitter is a PDF. The second is an Excel. And the third is that Google Doc. And so since this was a PDF, the file type went through here. It said it was equal to that meme type. So since it was equal to that meme type, that data and that information got pushed over here. If it were an Excel, it would do the same route. So it went down here. It went through the n8n workflow, went down into this environment. It said it's equal to it. So it did equal that meme equal this, and the Excel would have been put out over here. And the same thing, this file type goes through. Nope, no, yes, it goes through and reads this and it matches. So then it puts it out as output 2. Okay, so now we have that data transferred over. Let's hit back. We can see the green line that the data got pushed to the extractor. Now this is another, here's an important step, really simple to set up. Just drop this in there. You hit text extract PDF. Nothing to change here, but let's test that step out. It's going to push that information through. And now it's taken this data that was a PDF, and now it's listed as a text document. So now we have all this information as a different rows and columns and different arrays and characters instead of it being one massive PDF. All right. So now that data just went through and it's at the Pinecone vector store. Say that 4 times. And I'm going to play this and it's going to run through my vector store. I may have an error. Let's see. So it didn't. So now it ran through this. Let me open this up. I forgot to set this up for you. And there's some important aspects in here. Okay. So this is where this information got sent to year 2. So if this was year 2 information, it would have been inside of your Google document year 2 folder. It would have ran through the system and it would have taken that information and put it in year 2. Now you can create multiple categories within it. So what I did was I created a Pinecone namespace. What you would do is you'd hit option and it would have been an option. Let me delete this so you can see. So I deleted this. I hit option, Pinecone namespace, and then you put in the namespace. So if it was your year 2 of operations, you would label it as operations. You could label it HR. You could label it whatever you want it to label, but we'll explain what just happened. So we'll just label this back operations just because it's not going to do anything. So we have that information and it's already been ran through. It ran through the vector store. I already have a video of how to set this up, but it output 80 items. So it read through my text. It broke it up into the characters that I've mentioned that I wanted it. So the way it broke it up was it had 80, it put out 80 records. And the way that broke it up was it took my entire text and it broke it up into chunks of 1,000. So 1,000 characters, every 1,000 characters, it broke it up. There's no overlap. So once it hit the end of that 1,000, it started the next 1,000. you could have an overlap where once it hits the 1,000 and you put a 10 character overlap, it would go back 10 characters and start from there. So you'd have a little bit of an overlap for context. And so then it put this out. So where did this go? So inside of your Pinecone store, we created that index. And I created the year 1 just to show you what was happening. But inside of this, I had year 2. And if I refresh this, and if I refresh that and I open up year 2, I should have 160 records here. These records are broken down into categories and information down at the bottom. So we have our text files. We have the text files down here of how it's broken into. So here we have the ID. And so this data got sent in. We have all these records. We have the ID. And this ID is a unique identifier for the document. So instead of reading the entire document, it's going to read the identifier and see the score. This score, it shows how relevant this document is to the query that's going to be searched. So this is a pretty high score. That's probably because it's the executive summary or the abstract of the article. So it has all of the information within the article in one little section. But if we go through, we see different scores of different information throughout the article. So now let's go back to the vector store. What I would do if I were you in this scenario is I would save this. I know the name is Ultimate Vector Store, but what I would do is I would go back here. I would copy and make a duplicate. And for you, I would make year, I keep everything lowercase, year 2. And then this would be, so this would be the next workspace that I've created. So instead of having to redo and make everything, now all I have to do is go through certain places and update the information. So what I mean by that is I can go to the vector store, and then I can just update year 1 or year 2, which one it falls into. And I could redo this for year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8, and then create the namespaces for them. So last, what I would do is I would create this rag. And in this rag, this agent is going to be able to query your 2 years of information. So you could do this, like I said, 8 times, just hit the plus, add a new vector store, name it. And then you have to come in here. What's important about this is tell it, I gave you a prompt, and I can show you how I made this prompt. What I did for this prompt is I created a prompt engineer. So because we have this AI agent and I need the prompt, I'm going to show you what I did to make this prompt. So here's the prompt right here. I gave it a role, instructions, steps, and all of the information. The only thing that I did need to do is I need to tell it to call a certain information. So call year 2 Pinecone vector store for any queries regarding year 2. Go up 1, hit enter, tools to call. This is so that it knows who to call for what. All right, so what I did to make this prompt, and I'll leave this in the description below, is I told ChatGPT, you're a prompt engineer and an expert AI agent prompt in n8n. Use the Ryzen method. Ryzen is a framework for prompt engineering. It stands for roles, instructions, steps, end state, and narrowing to create prompts to feed your information. It said, great. And then I gave it the example, write a prompt for a RAG AI agent. And then it gave me the prompt right here. It's really a good method. It's really easy. And then the reason I did this is I prepped it because I created some other ones. And so then all I have to do is tell it, write another one for an agent that does research on the internet. And then it does that. I can come down here and say, write another for an agent that manages calendars. And it will remember what we prepped it, and it will create you this in the right method. All right, so now we have that. And then now we can close this back down and we can test it out to see if it works. What happened in year 2? Let's see what happens. So it searched, it went through, and now we have, here is all the information from year 2. Pretty short article, but basically we see it works. So I hope that answers your question. Again, to answer your question, what I would do is break up your database into the years and then break those categories into subcategories: operations, HR, contracts, marketing, etc. And then create a vector store depending on how large that information is, and then create this method for it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I appreciate it. If you have more questions, if you have more ideas that you need, let me know. I'll do the research for you. I'm the Data Doc. I appreciate you for listening.